Mayor and Councillors, I'm Saleh Waziruddin, President of the Park Towers Tenants Association. I live in one of the larger buildings in St. Catharines owned by a REIT, the corporation that owns 4 other buildings in the city. One of the options staff is proposing, or at least listed, is to stop enforcing other bylaws to fund the enforcement of the vacant building bylaw, alternative 2, which you just heard about. Specifically, one of the bylaws proposed to take out of enforcement is the vital services bylaw, which is supposed to protect tenants like me. When the vital services bylaw was adopted in 2022, it was because a tenant had no heat, and it took 3 months to get their heat back under the property standards bylaw. The vital services bylaw was brought in to get these fixed within 24 hours, either by the landlord or directly by the city with a bill passed on to the landlord, because no one should be without heat in the winter. The city can take action to protect tenants and then get the costs covered by the landlords. The manager of bylaw enforcement went on the radio, Tom McConnell's show on 610 CKTV, talk about how great it is that the city will now have a vital services bylaw to protect tenants much faster. But the next year, when a tenant from a building across the street from me under the same corporate landlord tried to get the bylaw enforced for hallway heat, this council voted closely to remove hallway heat from the vital services bylaw instead of enforcing it. You can't say to the public, we have this great bylaw, but when it comes time to enforce it, you decide to favor the corporate landlords by stripping protections away. Now, one of the options before you tonight is to effectively away with the vital services bylaw altogether by not enforcing it at all. This is going backwards to where we were 5 years ago, where it took 3 months to get the heat back on in the winter. When hallway heat was taken away, the manager of bylaw enforcement said there were many more cases than expected, about 60 that year. I did a freedom of information request, and the city's own data shows since 2022, there have been 381 calls to have the vital services bylaw enforced. That means heat, hot water, hydro. Some of these were commercial units, but most were tenants like me. Of these, 273 had to do with heat or gas, almost 3/4. Of these, 50 were in buildings with more than 20 units, and 22 were in REITs, corporations that sell shares in the stock market. But these are just the tip of the iceberg. Most people don't even know to call the city to enforce this protection, or even when they do, they're too scared of the landlord. In my own building, at least 2 seniors in the Tenants Association don't have heat in the winter, but didn't want to complain, and they're not included in the city stats. But what would be the point of getting them to complain if the city won't even enforce its own bylaws? The city should be going even further with vital services, not effectively scrapping them. Vital services bylaw enforcement should be beefed up to meet the demands, as somebody else suggested tonight. It should be publicized to capture more complaints where people don't have the basic necessities to live. This is an area where it is in the city's jurisdiction, not some other level of government. The rest of Ontario and the world is going in the opposite direction. They're moving forward. When I was here 3 years ago to speak against removing hallway heat from the vital services bylaw, Councillor Townsend asked if there were other protections that weren't covered by the bylaw. And I told him there were. The opposite problem in the summer: protection from the heat, which kills people, causes injuries. Toronto is looking to make cooling part of their vital services bylaw. It's already done by so many other places around the world. Our Tenants Association couldn't even have a potluck this summer because the common areas are too hot. But it's not just the bigger cities. The same year you decided to remove hallway heat from protection instead of enforcing the bylaw, Aurora added a vital services bylaw, and they have half the population of St. Catharines. Last year, Caledon added it as well, again, half the population. Just on Friday, Owen Sound started the process of adding a vital services bylaw, and they have fewer people thorough. Staff has said St. Catharines is the only municipality in Niagara to have a vital services bylaw. That's because Niagara is behind the rest of the province and country on so many things. It's nothing to be proud of. St. Catharines should be leading the way. There are other bylaws staff is proposing to stop enforcing, or is in the list, to stop enforcing to fund enforcement of the vacant building bylaw. The sign bylaw, which you just talked about, and the graffiti bylaws are important because there are white supremacist groups postering and tagging on public property here. They're promoting mass deportations, which they're trying to rebrand as remigration. They don't just mean deporting migrants, but also citizens, including those born in Canada. They don't consider people like me to be Canadian. We've seen how in other places this movement has escalated to violence, like Northern Ireland. These groups are committing crimes in violating the sign and graffiti bylaws. The city has a legal obligation to hold them accountable. I know of at least one pro-Palestine poster removed by the city on private property under the sign bylaw. It would be wrong to stop enforcing these bylaws on white supremacist groups, postering and graffitiing just to fund enforcement against vacant buildings. Please do not choose alternative 2. Instead, you should be funding more enforcement of the vital services bylaw and publicizing this protection to all tenants in the city because we know it's badly needed. Thank you.